This one's for all of my new beekeepers out there that are wondering, should I use a queen excluder or should I not? I'm going to give you all of the pros and all of the cons of using a queen excluder so that you can confidently make a decision on whether you should use one or not. So first, when using a queen excluder, you can be 100% confident that when you're taking off your honey supers, that the queen is not going to be in there and you're not going to take her from the hive. Also, since you have the queen isolated in one area of the hive, this makes health checks of the hive so much easier because you already know that the top box or the middle box is going to be completely full of just honey, but that bottom box, since you have the queen excluder right over it, that's going to be where all your brood are because that's where your queen is. So this is only going to give you one box that you have to go through instead of going through the entire hive to check everything. So just makes checks a little bit quicker and easier. Also, another thing to save time is when you are removing a honey super, most of the bees are going to hang out on the brood comb. So there's not going to be as many bees on those honeycombs as there would be if there was brood in there. So you're not going to have to spend as much time brushing off bees and whatnot when you decide to take off your honey. The queen is also a lot easier to find when you know she's only going to be in one box. So again, you're not going to have to go through your entire hive looking for her because you know she's going to be in this bottom box. So it just makes it a lot easier because sometimes it's really hard to find the queen. She knows how to hide really well. Now, if you plan on using any of the comb with your honey for wax to sell, brood comb is much darker because of the cocoons that the brood is made and stored in. So you're not going to be able to produce as high quality of wax because it's going to be darker. So putting a queen excluder on your hive will ensure that the comb that's in your honey is actually going to be clean, pure comb. And also in brood comb, the bees store a lot of pollen as well. So you're going to get a lot of pollen in your honey if you also have brood frames mixed in with your honeycomb. So making sure that your brood is completely separate from your honey will just ensure that you don't have any impurities in your honey. Okay, now what are the cons? I'm sure you've heard the saying, queen excluders are honey excluders. Some older beekeepers always say that if you put a queen excluder on, you're not going to be getting as much honey. They say this because they say that it takes more energy for the bees to maneuver their way through the excluders and that it could possibly, if it has sharp edges, it could damage their wings, which will also impact their foraging ability and just overall bee health and being able to do things because they need their wings to move. Now, I spent a couple hours looking for research articles, any peer-reviewed articles by people who have studied this to see if the use of queen excluders do actually impact honey production, but I couldn't find any. Everything that I saw was just anecdotal, so take it with what you want. Also, you can kind of tell just by feeling whatever queen excluder that you get. You could feel the edges to see how sharp they are. Plastic is a little bit sharper because a lot of the queen excluders are made of just like punched out plastic, so it leaves a sharper edge, and this one does appear to be a little sharper. So I mean, I don't know, you could try it yourself and see if it makes a difference. I would definitely be curious to see if it does make a difference or not. Also, if you end up at some time moving some of your brood above a queen excluder, just keep in mind that if you have any drone brood up there, once they hatch, they're going to have a lot of trouble trying to get through that queen excluder because these holes aren't quite big enough for them. So when they die, well, first, they're going to be trapped in that upper part of the hive. Unless you put in an upper entrance, then this fixes the whole issue. But when those drones die, it is possible that they can clog this up and that will impact ventilation of the hive because they'll just fall onto this and it'll be more difficult unless you put in an upper entrance for the worker bees to clean out any of the drones. So just keep in mind, if you ever move any of the brood above a queen excluder, that in your regular checks, you are making sure that you are cleaning off this queen excluder so that there aren't any drone bees hanging out there and just clogging the whole thing up. Also, I've noticed in all of my hives that the bees, they really like to build up burr comb on these queen excluders. So a lot of times it can plug up an entire area, and that's also going to affect the ventilation of your hive. So just make sure, I always make sure that I clean it off every single time I open up the hive, but they still build it back every single time because that's just what they love to do. So also, since you are restricting the queen to one particular area, you are restricting the queen. She's not able to move around the hive as she normally would. Bees naturally live in old dying trees, and they'll build their hive in like a sphere. And that queen can go wherever she wants around in that hive. So when you put a queen excluder in, obviously you're excluding the queen. You're putting her only in one area and she's not able to move. Now, I'm not sure how much of an effect this has on her. I'm not sure if this is gonna possibly affect how many eggs she's able to lay. Because I've noticed with my hives, at least, my bees, they always, well, actually a lot of bees, they like to grow up, not necessarily out when they're building the brood nest. So they're pretty much, they're going to be there in the middle, and then they kind of like, they just stay there and they kind of just like do it like this. So it is possible that it could affect how many eggs that she's going to lay. Again, I couldn't find any articles on this, on whether or not it does. I haven't heard anything from other beekeepers, so just keep this in mind. And lastly, just remember that if you do have a virgin queen that hatches, 9 times out of 10, she will be small enough to squeeze through those little holes. So don't be alarmed if you find her in a different box than where she was supposed to be. So really, using queen excluders is 100% just your preference. Personally, I use them because it just makes my life a lot easier, because like I said, I'm trying to save time. I have 12 beehives, so I can't sit there and take time to go through 3 boxes per hive to check everything when I'm doing a bee maintenance health check. So putting on a queen excluder gives me only 1 box that I have to check, maybe 2 if it's a really strong hive and they have 2 deeps is their brood nest. But yeah, I like using queen excluders. That way I also know she's not going to be in those honey supers when I take them off. And then I also know there's not going to be brood up there. It just makes everything a lot more organized and a lot easier for us as beekeepers. So I hope all of this information can help you make the best decision you possibly can as a beekeeper. Remember that beekeeping is a learning experience. It's okay to make mistakes. We all do. So yeah. Just go out there and have fun with it, and I hope this helps. I'll see you guys in the next one.